Hey, welcome back to the Mistwood Publishing Book Club. I am your host, S.R. Mowry, and this week we'll be looking at my book, The Veil of Stars, Chapter 22, The Blackened Keep, one of my favorite chapters. So in this chapter, in order to write this chapter, I read a ton of Edgar Allan Poe, and that probably, with that knowledge in mind, probably makes sense to you. So I have some red lights on because Nerys is one of the oldest, one of the first ideas I came up with for this story. She's the reason why we have the scripture in the front of the book. And, I think you probably be infer of what the reasons for that are after reading this chapter. But, some people don't agree with my methods on this chapter, but I had a certain goal that I set out to do with this chapter, and I knew that it was going to make some people angry, and I'm not saying that they don't have a reason to be angry, some of these people coming from the way they see the world and everything, but I had a mission for what I set out for what this chapter should be, and I, even years later, still feel that I nailed it, and so I love this chapter. I'm very proud of this chapter, and I did what I set out to do, and in part, some people's reaction to it kind of proves that I set out to do what I meant to do. So we are introduced to this character that we were introduced to, if you recall, in the prologue. The second story that Narbad's grandfather tells him is about Nerys and her origin story. And so here we get an introduction to her, and it's a very powerful introduction. I feel like I painted a very visceral image of this character and what's going on here. It's a very unique and very strong Gothic aesthetic, which is why I read a lot of Edgar Allan Poe before writing it. Nerys is supposed to be basically the embodiment of lust. She's supposed to be perversity incarnate. She's supposed to be irredeemable. And I don't want to spoil anything, but it's a very powerful story, her story. And again, I think I communicated those things that I just said. I think I communicated those very well. And she is, I believe it's revealed in here, she's what I call a sorceress of chaos, right? And this is going to be sorceresses and sorcerers of chaos and knights of order and warlocks of order and all of that. They're going to be one of the main focal points of the next book. So it is important that that Nerys introduces this rather complex other form of magic, right? Because we have Linod's form of magic, which is, given to him from Gesu, as he explained to Talia in the the Land of Mystery. And we have Karam's type of magic, which he has explained, which is dark magic. And now we have this other type of magic, which is chaos. And so the basic principle of that is that there's order and chaos in nature. And a sorceress of chaos or a knight of order can harness those energies produced from nature to use magic. Order, the sun gives our planet order, gives the universe order. So a knight of order can basically, almost like a solar panel, absorb that as magic and energy and turn it into magic. Nerys, however, is relying on the chaos of the world. And so in order to enhance her powers, she uses her beauty and her magic to further sow chaos in the hearts and minds of our companions. As we can see here, the male companions and the female companions are smitten by her, and she's going to be creating and does create very conflicting emotions within them. And that is feeding her power, right? So she is using her energy to create more energy, essentially, which makes her more powerful. Which is why she's in control of the Hydra. Like, she controls the Hydra. Anybody that steps in the dark forest, she's going to herd towards her so that she can gain in power by basically torturing these people. She's kind of a bad lady, she's kind of like your penultimate evil witch, who just kind of loves being bad. And they partly go to her because they're looking to heal Ragni, who is still in critical condition, and she does save him. And she's using this to create conflicting emotions among the companions because that breeds chaos. It breeds conflict. And that's kind of her whole shebang is she uses her alluring presence, she uses her magic to create further chaos, which then makes her more powerful. And this is, of course, Nerys from the prologue, where, she was the Empress, her and her husband, were the leaders of this grand empire through dark magic. And so this is the same Nerys that was cursed in the ancient days to be immortal until she could be redeemed. And now we have our companions confronting that evil. And I kind of like that the prologue, which people are often intimidated by, it ties to this very important, really key character in the third act. So the next scene, Narbad, they've been basically tricked into staying the night. And Narbad is in his room where Nerys comes in and basically tries to seduce him. And one thing that's unique about the Nerys character is, she doesn't really wear any clothes, but she also doesn't have any private parts. So it's kind of like the cheetah back there where, there's nothing there, but it's also bare, right? Although that cheetah's more like wearing like a skin-tight suit. But for Nerys' purposes, it's like she's not wearing anything, but there's also nothing to cover up, if that makes sense. Like, she has breasts, but there's no nipples. She has no downstairs situation. And, she still tries to, even though it technically would be impossible, she still is trying to elicit chaotic emotions within Narbad by trying to seduce him. Even though there's very limited things that she could actually do with that, but that's beside the point. She sees Narbad as a threat to her worldview because she's the embodiment of lust, and he is someone who very much so believes in love. He loves Talia. He does not fall for her seduction, and that absolutely baffles her. It's like never happened before. And so she kind of is like surprised by him that there's somebody that can be this way. And I kind of draw upon here, I draw from another story that's really popular and I love a lot, and that is Les Miserables, right? Jean Valjean and Fantine, right? Fantine is this prostitute who has only ever been treated like crap, and she doesn't think she deserves happiness. When Jean Valjean's helping her, she tries to offer him sex because, well, she thinks that's what he wants because he wouldn't be doing these things for any other reason. And Jean Valjean he just loves her. Like, it's not a sexual thing. He just, maybe it is, but that's not, it's not like that's the only thing he's after. He's after love. And again, that's still an arguable, a debatable point, depending on the version of the story that you're reading or watching. But point is, it's like this person who is a harlot that doesn't think they're deserving of love meets somebody of remarkable moral standing and just love, to where love conquers the lust, and shows this person that thinks there's no other way that there is another way. And, you know, it's a beautiful thing. So she leaves, and he kind of is drawn to this library, which, you know, it doesn't take a genius to realize that Neris, you're going to find out really, well, you probably already know because you read the chapter, that Neris is actually two people. Part of the curse that Gesu put upon her was that she's kind of like Smeagol, where there's two people kind of living in the same body, split personality disorder. And so Narbad goes to the library, and I had a lot of fun creating that atmosphere because I love a nice warm library with books and all of that. And I've always wanted to go in an old library with a fireplace and all that. But at any rate, there's a few books open, and Narbad comes across a few interesting revelations. The Basilisk revelation will come up in the next chapter. But as far as Neris, a lot of context is given, including a rather big reveal that Tasion, her husband from the prologue that we thought she had killed, is actually Karam, the villain that they are plummeting towards with conflict. They are the same person. So Neris never... She did kill her husband, but he was such a powerful wizard that he was able to become a lich. And so Karam is Tasion, and so we're going to have this big conflict between Neris and her husband, who she thought she had killed permanently, you know, if she is a part of that, right? But it's a big reveal. It's a big kind of like dang moment, and Neris kind of shows up soon after he kind of discovers a theory of how to deal with her curse. And I had a lot of fun kind of painting the picture of how she shows up in the library with the trees like basically sticking in her and making her bleed. And we see a large level of vulnerability with Neris here, and we see the half of her that's more like Smeagol, not Gollum. And I've always... it's a very small line in here, but, you know, there's a moment where she's crying, and she's, like, basically hugging Narbad, and a tear kind of soaks his shirt. That's like a visual that I've had happen in my life, and I kind of, like, thought it was poetic, so I put it in there. But it's a beautiful moment, and we kind of have the scene set for what's going to happen in this castle. Although, don't think that things are going to go the way you think they are, because it's a pretty surprising set of events. In fact, you know, Neris kind of just leaves him after, you know, the good Neris kind of just leaves him with the, you know, help me kind of thing, and you're on your own sort of thing, because who knows when the other half of me is going to show up again. But hopefully that was a pretty good introduction to this rather important character. I hope you have a great week, and I will see you with the next video.